Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of The Equalizer. A great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. The title of this episode is Exposed, and there's double layers to that. Obviously, there's a whole situation with Robin, but there's also everything that Dee and her friend Vera are going through in this episode. So first and foremost, you have Robin trying to track down the person that was working with Quinn that she got that picture of. Was it last episode or episode before last? Whichever the case may be. So Robin's trying to find out as much as she can about that particular person. Even to the point she breaks into the Cuban embassy to do it, which I'm like, that was pretty brazen. And she did it alone because she knew Mel and Harry would stop her from doing this, stop her from going after Quinn. And she's so driven by revenge that she doesn't think about the aftermath of like, right, Quinn doesn't know enough about you yet. But the fact is, the moment you open this can of worms, he'll come after everyone you care about, which includes your Aunt Vi and your daughter, and potentially even your ex-husband too. Even I'm sure Dante would get mixed up in that too, because you guys work together on occasion, and yeah, he'll probably use that relationship to kind of threaten you. So it's a situation of Robin not caring. She tells Mel and Harry that she's going to back down from all of this because it's like, right, she just wants revenge simply because her run-ins with Mason Quinn in the past, regardless, his attempts to kill her, his successful killing of Bishop. Now it's like she wants revenge, and she's being so driven by it that, yes, Delilah is an important part of her, but that's kind of getting overshadowed by her need for revenge. And it's hard to say in the long run whether or not her obsession with Quinn was the right thing or not, because in the long run she ends up finding out that what he's ended up doing, that he's trying to release a dirty bomb in New York. Because she didn't want to bring Harry and Mel into it, because Harry and Mel will try and stop her every step of the way. So what does she do instead? She goes to Griffin, her new CIA contact. And they try to go out there. They were looking for the guy that Robin's tracking down, trying to get towards Quinn. They were after that guy to begin with, and she gave them the heads up they needed. And they're trying to pump him for information, but they couldn't break him. So Robin does. And I love that. The moment Robin got shot during that escape, I was like, yeah, how would Quinn and them know exactly? The way he was acting so brash, he was almost like, oh, they'll know exactly where I am. But I'm like, why would they know that? I'm sure they took precautions when bringing you there, but I guess he assumed his people are that good. They might not even notice that he was missing in that time frame. They still probably had enough of a window. Because Robin was threatening him like, oh, you're going to basically disappear. No one's going to know whatever happened to you. And the CIA is going to torture you for as long as it takes to get some information out of you. But he's like, right, it's for a greater cause, so he's okay with that. It makes sense in the long run why he works with Quinn, because when they look into his information, it turns out this guy, he kind of walked away from the Cuban government because he felt like they weren't doing enough to attack the West and weaken the West. And that's why he's working with someone like Quinn, because Quinn's trying to severely weaken the West, in particular the U.S. So he believes in this cause, that this is, I think, a better reshaping of the world type of thing. Quinn, it's more about power, but I think this guy probably feels like, no, I am doing this because the rest of the world kind of has to flow by what the U.S. kind of does. Like, the U.S. gets to dictate so much because of its might and power and position in the economic realms of the world, that I think it's like, right, the power dynamic needs to shift. And he's trying to probably bring a little back to his own country and to other parts in the world, so that the U.S. isn't necessarily a powerhouse that it is on the economical level that it is, and whatnot, and even on the international scale that it is. So I guess that his is more maybe nationalistic, whereas Quinn is like, no, I'm all about the money and power. Power being the main currency he's after. But I love that whole thing of getting him to pump in for. And the moment they were like, oh, do you want to talk to Quinn? I was like, at first I was like, did you take, I was wondering if they took samplings of his voice and like amalgamated it into like a program. I mean, maybe that's what they did. Maybe they just have a voice changer. Maybe that's all there is to it. I assume it has to be a voice changer. But what I was thinking of, like a program where it's like you can have it program whatever you need it to say, but it's based on stuff Quinn's ever said, his dialogue, but you kind of cut and paste it together to be what you want. It's like, no, it's not one of those things. It is it's straight up a voice changer is what Robin uses. And they ended up getting a lot of information out of that guy before he ends up realizing it's a trick and he got played, so. But once again, it's the secrecy of Robin not telling Vi or Delilah, because Delilah's work is like, right, mom's out all night, she looks tired, then she's coming back like in the morning but immediately leaving back out because she's so driven by this that she doesn't realize she's concerning her entire family. And Delilah's getting to the point that it's like, right, mom doesn't even trust me. And it's like, her mom trusts her. It's just certain aspects about her world and life she never wants to share with Delilah because it's like, right, you know the surface level about what I do, what I'm a part of, but I'd rather not focus on, you know, some of the more shady and darker parts of what I do, especially when it's like, right, I'm out here trying to get revenge. You don't need to be mixed up in that. So I get why she wants to keep Vi and Delilah out of that because she wants to protect them. She's trying to keep both lives of her separated, which I don't, in the future, I think this season finale sets up the possibility that that won't be possible, that both halves of her life are going to blur together. So because of that, Delilah tries to handle a lot of stuff on her own. And I wasn't expecting the old someone's nudes getting out, and I'm like, oh god. I think I talked about this during Stargirl because Stargirl had the whole same thing with Yolanda's storyline in season 1. And she had to kind of... well, by the time we got introduced to Yolanda, it was already in the midst of all that. I wouldn't even say the aftermath. She was still kind of dealing with that. And we've got like a flashback kind of showcasing that. But I think I talked about it then. I was aware of a situation like that in high school. I believe there was one girl, I won't go into it too much because I don't even know the details, but I remember that being the word around school, like, oh, some pictures of her that she sent to somebody somehow got out and the entire school had them. For one, I never saw them, and I never knew the ins and out of it. Like, that's why I'm almost like, that's why I don't know for sure if it really happened. But, I mean, people were whispering about it, so I'd assume it really did happen. But I'm like, that sucks. Because I think because I was in high school, I was a teenager myself, so at the time, I don't think I had I didn't have the forethought to understand that. Now that I'm a full-grown adult, I'm like, and who also has nieces who are teenagers, it's like, dude, that's just the most effed up thing possible. It's like Vera's ex-boyfriend is a garbage human being doing that. But also it's like, right, and because that's also the thing too, and even like her being like, because you had Delilah trying to handle things from a responsible standpoint. It's like, my mom, like, how that just shows you how much of a good person Delilah is. You know, she's trying to be there for her best friend. And like, I'm going to help you. I'm going to be here. We don't need, like, because she doesn't want to tell her parents. Because, like, right, if we go to authorities and everything, my parents are going to have to find out. So they try to go through the school, but the school can only do so much. So they'd have to see the photo, blah, 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 find out who's bullying her, which is like, how do you pintail that when it's like so many girls are cracking jokes and guys are cracking jokes? So she knows if she does that, like drags them into it, like, oh, these are the people bullying me, it's just going to make things that much worse. So, and then a psychiatrist like, oh, why would you do something, like, why did she take the photo? So now, and it enters into that conversation, making it seem like it's her fault. It's like, the fact is someone took an intimate photo that was between you and another person, like that. I mean, and that's the sad thing. It's not, obviously, we're dealing with this in a high school setting. We know from just the societal sense that this isn't just like oh, this is just a high school issue. It's a technological issue that, you know, older women have to deal with too. Like, celebrities have been in this exact same situation and those exact same conversations of, why'd you take the photo in the first place? It's like a photo that you and someone, you share with someone. It's like, you know. But it's also like when you're a teenager, you don't think about the repercussions of like, oh, this photo might get... You never think about that type of stuff, I'm sure. You don't have that forethought, you know? And once again, especially when you think about the fact that adults really don't think about that sometimes, because once again, and it's not even your fault. It's just like you give it to someone you trust, and that person betrays you, so... And this was him getting back at Vera for breaking up with him. Someone's like, wow, makes you even scummier. So now Vera doesn't want to do anything because it's like, right, if they get the police involved, that means actually getting her parents involved. And she's like, Delilah, there's nothing you can do. Just leave me alone. And so Delilah goes to Dante, who it's like, he can't do much until, and even then the photos are out there, you know, the conversation of once something's on the internet, it's pretty hard to delete it. That's just kind of like the rule of thumb. It's like, yeah, if something's on the internet, it's kind of out there forever. So he gives Delilah the number. He knows Robin's name, but he still doesn't know that. He still doesn't know that Robin is her mom. And it's not until he gives her, it's like, yeah, this person's the Equalizer. And then she looks at the number and it's like, right. Because he knows Robin's first name, but he doesn't know her last name. So still that interesting thing that, because Delilah knows Dante's connection to his mom, to her mom, but you know, obviously Dante doesn't know the inverse of that. But I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Ultimately, she does go to her mom for help, which it's like, you know, Delilah wants to be more into this world, wants to, you know, know all there is to know about her mom. Like there isn't, because the more she knows about her mom's world, the more she feels like, oh, my mom trusts me. I feel like there's a part of my mom still being hidden from me. So gets introduced to Harry and Mel's like so happy to and meet her and hugs her and it's like, oh my God, we know so much about you. I mean, not in like a creepy way. And Harry's like, well, if I was her, I would think it would be in a creepy way. Because it's like, yeah, we've known you your entire life or something. I was like, I think that's super adorable. And, you know, Mel telling the stories about what Robin's done, which even Delilah's like, Mom never talks about it. It's like, well, for one, your mom never talks about, like, you know, she's never the showboaty type to ever talk about the good that she done. Because I think always for Robin, she probably always, you know, focuses more on the bad. You know, she thinks like, yeah, I do good, but I think there's probably always a part in her mind, like, I could do more. I could do, like, help more people. And also, Mel says what makes Robin so special is that for good and bad, she does focus on like her home life. Delilah being so important to her grounds her, whereas like so many of people don't have something that grounds them back to their life. It's kind of, they're just all into the spy stuff and try to keep both sides separated. And whereas Robin is doing this equalizing stuff, but also remembering what she's fighting for. She's fighting for, a place making a place a better place for her daughter, and also doing good, doing stuff that, you know, she would want her daughter to do some good in the world too. So it gave Delilah an insight to her mom and gave her a better understanding. So, but y'all, once again, gotta give props to Delilah for standing up to that douchebag Logan, and also putting it out there like, yo, what this photos could be classified as. It's like, yeah, you might be teenagers too, but you're still both minorities, so you distributing that photo can count as, you know, the super inappropriate thing. I don't even want to say CP. I don't even want to say the word, just, you know, just only off chance. So, so that is something, because even if it's like, oh, she's 16 and he's 17, it still counts as that. So, but it's heartbreaking to know that Vera was willing to kill herself over this. I mean, especially, it's not, and once again, it's not even just the high school thing of like, oh, because you're a high school, you think you're a type. It's like, this is something that would follow her forever. Like, it's out there on the web, spread amongst her school. Like, would you even be able to go back to school because of that? The fact is, it would follow you forever. Like, the fact is, it's been deep faked on porn sites. It's like, that's a lot to be kind of thrust upon a teenager. It's like, it's this scary age of technology that something like this couldn't have been like imaginable probably like what 20 years ago, because this is something like the deep fake thing. I think there was still Photoshop, but obviously deep fake technology being what it is today, it's on a whole other level for like revenge porn, I think, and I think that one makes it even more disgusting and so jacked up, and it's just, I don't know. I think it's, and I also feel bad for Delilah, like, not all, like, because for a little bit through some of this, she felt like, on some fronts, she didn't feel like she had her mom by her side. It's like, right, when she was going through everything on her own early, she's like, yeah, my mom's dealing with bigger stuff, she ain't gonna have time for me. Then, on top, later on, it's like, right, Robin couldn't be contacted at the time, but luckily she had Mel and Harry there to back her up. And luckily she was able to convince Vera. It's like, you were there for me when Jason died. You know, we know what he wanted from life, and, you know, and they kind of have to carry on that torch for the life he's not able to live. And it's like, right, this world is a better place with you in it. You're my friend, and I love you. And I you know, think about your little brother. Like, he looks up to you. Do not do this. You know, and luckily she was able to convince her not to do it, because it's like, right, you're not in this alone. And I think that was beautiful, because Delilah's, you know, knows, like, even more so, because it's like, right, I'm not even here helping you alone. We're in this together, because Delilah's going to need to be there for Vera, because it's not something, just taking the photos off the internet, even if they're able to do that, which Harry is luckily able to later on, which we'll get to, even with that, it's still a thing of that trauma and hurt won't go away. It's a slow process, but luckily she has, and, you know, Delilah sticking up when those girls are laughing about it. It's like, yo, how could you do that? Like, you're acting like this isn't possible for you guys too. This could be you, this could be you, this could even be me. Like, there's already enough trolls out there with all this. Like, why are we attacking each other? We should have each other's back during something like this, you know? And luckily, Harry was able to, you know, circling back to it, Harry going toe-to-toe with a hacker, he's like, yeah, and I love Mel being like, wait, you were watching porn all night? He's like, yeah, but it was the icky kind, honey. My porn is ethically, my stash of porn is ethically sourced. I was like, oh, Harry, interesting. But it ended up him crossing paths with the hacker, like the one who's, like, using all this exploitative stuff. Him and Harry go at it, like, hacking wise, and Harry was luckily able to stop him. I was almost wondering, I was like, there can't be a bigger plot to that, can it? There's always, I guess, the possibility that guy might pop up later on, but they made too much of a point to make him a thing. They made it too much of a storyline that I'm like, that has to be more to that. Like, we might see that guy pop up later on, but maybe not. I don't know. But at the same time, they're not quite... at the same time all this is happening, Robin learned from Griffin that, hey, I kind of had to tell the CIA about you, which the moment that happened, I was like, damn, that sucked. Because I was like, if the CIA knows it, there's a good chance Quinn knows about it, which I think that's why the ending happens, but we'll get there when we get there. But it's like, Robin didn't want her name involved in all this. She wanted to keep quiet, just because it, for one, gave her the freedom to go after Quinn her way, because if working with the CIA, she'd have to bend more so to what they want and kind of follow their rules. So, you know, being kind of freelance as she is, she gets to kind of go about things her own way. But, yeah, she makes it clear that he just wants to destabilize and throw everything into chaos, because every other country who are enemies of the U.S. want to take the U.S. down as kind of like this once again, this powerhouse in the international economical space and stuff. And it's like, well, how do you do that? You attack it like this, you kind of cripple it a little bit, and then he gets all the reputation for being the one that set, things on fire. And he's kind of, it seems like one of those people of, oh, I'm some men just want to watch the world burn. He definitely kind of has that vibe to him. But Griffin says that the CIA wants her to lead the task force against him. And Robin's just kind of reluctant at first, because she's just trying to be there for her daughter first and foremost. And ultimately, I love that line from Delilah at the end, where Delilah says that, I now understand that even if you aren't with me, you're still with me, because I know I now have the support system. I know that is something you've introduced me to, like Mel and Harry. Like, if I need to, I can turn to them as well. And I also know that I have the strength to handle things, you know, kind of on my own to some extent too. And it was also nice that Vera's parents, like, they didn't chastise her or anything. They were there to hug her and support her. Because I brought up the Yolanda thing. Yolanda wasn't as fortunate. Her entire family turned against her after everything went down. And that's something she's still she was dealing with in season 2. Probably might be something she still deals with in season 3. But, Yeah, like not every family is going to be supportive in that circumstance. So it's nice to see that it appears that her family is supporting her and has her back, because she was so scared to tell them, because it's also like the embarrassing thing, because it feels like, oh, I let my family down or something. But it's like, no, she was the victim in this situation, that someone did something terrible to her. And luckily they show up to arrest Logan. So it's like, yeah, that bastard's going to get what he deserves. So. Because he looked so unapologetic at the end when everyone was gathered celebrating Vera. It's like the other girls are like, hey, we're here, we're by your side. He was almost like, yeah, come on, let's go, guys. It's like, right, like it seemed like you had no shame. You weren't asking for forgiveness. You're just like, you're that much more, like, it makes you even that scummy. It's like, man, every time we turn around, guy, you were just the worse and worse and worse and worse as the episode went on. But, like I said, going back to it, Delilah understands a little bit more about what her mom does. It is the situation of all the people you help, and I have a better understanding of why she does what she does, because it's like, right, I hate to think what would happen to Vera if I wasn't there, and she now realizes, like, right, other people count on you too. Like, if you aren't there, I'd hate to think what would happen to other people if you weren't there to save them. So, just like, hey, like, if, so I think that was, that's fascinating. And I think, but at the end of the day, it also makes Delilah feel like, yeah, I'm more connected with my mom, and now I understand she does trust me, and once again, I've got so many supporters behind, backing me up, so I think that was, pretty dope. And ultimately, Robin does agree to leading the CIA team to go after Quinn. And ultimately, Robin fills Mel and Harry in, because her deal was, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to bring my team in. So I also love that it's showing that Robin realizes, like, right, I can't go at this Quinn thing alone, because if I do, I might lose sight. And, I think this episode wasn't just for, like, all the stuff that, in many different ways, Delilah helped her as much as she helped Delilah, because Delilah once again grounded her to be like, right, I got to remember what this is all about, not to get just so caught up in my revenge and taking down Quinn. I mean, it's about doing good and saving people, sure, but I also got to remember, that my daughter is important, and that kind of grounds her a little bit more in this life, that, like, right, I've got to let people in and don't try to handle things on my own. So, because I think Bishop had his squad, but he still kind of went at it alone and didn't come out on top. But I think Robin will, because she has so many people in her corner. So, and at the end, she is talking to Delilah and Vi about it, because she's ready to tell them about everything. But in that moment, the car gets hit. I knew that was coming because I caught a glimpse of the preview last week, and it showed that. I thought that was going to be earlier in the episode. I wasn't expecting that to be the finale stinger. I figured it, because I thought Quinn might come after her sooner, and this is what I was referencing earlier. I think the moment the CIA was like, yo, Robin is the one that's going to potentially lead this team, either Quinn has an inside source to the CIA by either he is able to hack it, has access to their information, or maybe he has a straight up insider regardless. I think the moment he found out Robin was coming, he's like, Rob, I promised you I was going to come after you. So not unless that was someone else, but I'm leaning towards that had to be Quinn, because they went after her specifically. But I also feel like if it was Quinn, he probably would have killed Vi and Delilah as well, because he is that kind of ruthless person. But I don't know. But it doesn't a lot to set up season 3. Which, speaking of, information has come out that the show is not only coming back for a 3rd season, but the show has also been renewed for a 4th season as well. So that's awesome to know. I always think that's interesting when, like, shows get renewed, like, multiple seasons in advance. That doesn't always happen. I want to say the last show I know that did that is Invincible, because it got renewed for its 2nd and 3rd season. That's the most recent. I think Chilling Adventures of Sabrina was like that with, like, part 2 and 3. But tangents aside, I'm very I'm very excited to see where season 3 will. I would stay expecting the Mason Quinn thing to be the main crux of this season because that was something they introduced in season 1. So I expected that to be kind of a bigger thing this season, which it was, but it wasn't till later in the season, and it's not so. He's going to be an even bigger thing. He's going to be like the main antagonist in season 3. But it makes you wonder what's going to happen. In the regard of how that story arc plays out, because obviously he has her at the beginning of season 3 potentially, depending on how the opening to season 3 plays out. I'm also curious, are we going to get more Clark? That I brought that up when he was first up. I was like, oh, you made such a point to introduce this character that I'm like, I think he's going to be like the new Bishop to some extent, because he also God, Robin. I had to pause for a second there because I was about to say because Queen Latifah. I was like, I don't know why I blinked on Robin's name real quick, and I was almost about to say Queen Latifah. Robin. God, that's just so funny to me. I love it when I do that sometimes, where I will mix up an actor's name and just I'll think they're the actor's name first before I think the character's name. I love when that happens sometimes. But Robin had made it clear to Griffin that, the only reason why Mason Quinn's allowed to do what he's doing right now is because the U.S. made a deal back then, and now they're going to have to suffer for it. This is their ignorance led to this, not put it keeping a madman like him locked away. And it's also interesting because now the CIA is offering oh, Robin, this guy, we kind of did this thing behind your back. We kind of need you to help lead the squad to capture him. So what other people are going to get introduced, other than Griffin, are there going to be other characters we get to meet on the team? Is there going to be is Harry going to have to compete with another hacker or something? I'm curious. Well, because it's all going to be in the US, so I don't expect it to be international level of things. Wasn't Adam Goldberg, who plays Harry, wasn't he in? I was thinking about, because I was just thinking about it, I was like, oh, wasn't he in the Taken TV show? Obviously playing a very similar role. I was like, I think he was, if I'm not mistaken. Because I was thinking of Taken, because isn't Taken international? I know Crossing Lines was on NBC was like that, but I'm like, I can't remember. I want to say Taken was it was an international element to that show. So I was wondering if the Equalizer would do that, but I'm like, I think because the attack's going to be in New York, I don't think she's going to leave the country. I think it'd be pretty hard to get her out of the country, but I think it's it's all going to stay local. But I'm just curious whether whether there's going to be like I said, will there be a Harry equivalent where the CIA already has their person and Harry and this hacker kind of butt heads a lot or something. A very partisan and chaos dynamic from Leverage. But regardless, like I said, I'm very excited to see where Season 3 ultimately ends up taking us going forward with all of this. I think it's also interesting, too, because I think this episode kind of parallels, and maybe they 100% did this intentionally, this season finale parallels the Season 1 finale. Obviously, Delilah's kind of in the same spot, but also a little differently because her and Robin's dynamic plays a little bit differently this season finale in comparison to season 1, but it's almost like there are interesting parallels you can make between them, and I think that had to be 100% on purpose. So, but her worlds are definitely going to be colliding a lot more, especially because Quinn's oh, I probably know who your family is, and once again, this is probably going to relate to some of as I've talked about in previous reviews, her dad is definitely going to be pushing more for custody because it's right, this happened because of you and you dragged your daughter into this, and maybe we'll find out whatever dirt it is that Robin's got on him of oh, don't act like you squeak it clean, you got there's some secrets he's hiding too, so maybe we'll find out. But like I said, we'll ultimately have to wait and see where all this takes us going forward into Season 3. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.